When the dice are in your hand and the stakes are high, every move, every roll, it's your time to fly. Practice like you play, put your heart in the fight. Play like you practice, every roll feels right. Roll to win, let the journey begin. Face the game with a champion's grin. Every step, every turn, it's the fire within. Roll to win, yeah, roll to win. From the tabletop dreams to the battles you chase, every critical moment, it's more than a race. Sharpen your skills, let the dice decide. With courage and will, you'll turn the tide. Roll to win, let the journey begin. Face the game with a champion's grin. Every step, every turn, it's the fire within. Roll to win, yeah, roll to win. Strategy's the key, but heart's the way. Level up your game, make the world your stage. Feel the thrill of the fight where the legends play. Practice and play, they're one and the same. Roll to win, where the story unfolds. The game's in your hands and the dice are gold. Practice like you play and the victory's clear. Roll to win, it's your time right here. Roll to win, let the journey begin. Face the game with a champion's grin. Every step, every turn, it's the fire within. Roll to win, yeah, roll to win. Roll to win. Roll to win, where the story unfolds. The game's in your hands and the dice are gold. Practice like you play, the victory's clear. Roll to win, it's your time right here.
All right, everybody. I am thrilled as can be tonight to have one of my good friends and somewhat of a legend in craps and a legend in a whole different world. Dean the Machine Gates is our guest tonight. So welcome to the show tonight, Dean.
Ed, it's a pleasure to be here. It's been way too long that we have not shared space at a table somewhere. I look forward to hopefully correcting that in the near future. But I am so happy to be here and excited from the first time I saw you start to do your YouTube channel, and then later about a year ago, you guys started up with the Casino Tears, and just to see the quality and the growth that you have done and what you've brought to craps, just education and knocking around and having fun. And
yeah, we have a good time with it.
Well, I can't
thank you for those kind words. We have a good time.
I can't think of anyone better than you to have spearheaded doing this, and it was a lot of fun meeting 10 Ton in Vegas several months back or whenever, and he's quite a guy.
His pocketbook appreciated meeting you too.
Well, that was I've been very fortunate for a reputation that my best performances have always been when there's someone in the craps education sphere is around to witness it. I don't normally have incredible throws like I did tonight with 10 ton.
Hey,
But that was an exciting night because that was just like this past week. It was a 10 times craps multiplier at the Caesars property, which they rarely do in Vegas. They'll do them in Kansas City. They'll do them, out here in Blackhawk. Sometimes they'll do them in odd, less traveled places. But normally they don't want to, they don't need to bring a flock of people out in Vegas. But that was a crowded night that night. It was huge, and magically the table opened up. I showed up, Justice Jin was there, and several other folks that were with their crew were there. It was very crowded, and all of a sudden there was a space for me, and all of us were there. And I had actually, that night, I walked over. I'd been traveling. I have a couple of friends I've been playing craps with for a long time, Travis and Ira, and we had been over one of the other casinos, and it was time to wrap it up for the night. I had chips in my pocket. I couldn't even cash them at the window. It was so crowded at the casino where I was. So I said, well, I'll come back tomorrow. And I walked over. It was different. I was at Horseshoe, walked over to Planet Hollywood where I was staying, and happened to run in, I knew that 10 Ton was going to be there. And I thought, well, I only have these chips. I don't have any cash. I'm probably not going to play anymore. It was, not the best of evenings up to that point. And literally one of the guys there said, oh, I'll just trade you out. I got chips here. Just come on, you got to play. And stepped up thinking I was going to my hotel room. Yeah. And 3 shooters later, I had the dice, and it was, I think about 42 rolls. And
that's what it was.
Justice Jin was right next to me, and being the best subtle coach one could have under high pressure times, she would just ask me some subtle questions. Like once, I think we hit the all small first, and we had some money was out there. She kind of said, "Oh, do you ever regress at this point a little bit?" And just very softly asked me that, and my mind thought, "Oh, it might be a good idea." So I regressed back a little bit, which was fine. Took several hundred off the table and continued to play. And then we hit the all tall, and everyone was just doing backflips. And I didn't realize how much 10 Ton was betting down there. And
he's only gotten bigger. He's only gotten bigger these days, I think.
Well, I heard. I've been hearing. I hear in the reports. I hear in his, at least up to recently, he was having a really strong streak there of success and metaphysical, power, as Bo would say. So that was it was nice. And and he was very, then I found out later how much he won, and he was very gracious to give me a purple chip, as a token. And I did decent for myself. But I wasn't powering, I didn't start out with a power, a bunch of power in my come out bets, which he does, and he did, and he pushed him up. And I pushed up very nicely for what I had, what I normally do, and was very happy with hitting the ATS and very happy with what we did. And I got to say, the dealers at the table, they were linked. I mean, they kind of knew what I was going to do before I did. I mean, I was going to say I want to do, and she call it out. I go, yeah, let's, and it's not every day you get to, take your, 186 or 8 and give them 30 and, go to 480, right? And 420.
Yeah. And
man, she used to be right away. I was doing, and then that hit, and automatically it's like, yeah, I'm going to give you. She goes, two reds for a purple. And I said, sure. So so I collected that.
Absolutely.
When you get to that level, it really gets fun to be 10 times up your 42s or your $18 or whatever you're doing, and just add the 0 on the back end and just keep pounding away at those 6 and 8s if you can do that. But
Absolutely.
and of course, I know you were telling me about your big power hit on crapless on your 12. I mean that's I've never done that. I've never taken a 12 up to that much. So that was spectacular.
It's been a long time since I have done it, but you've got to throw a lot of 12s.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to happen very often. That's the second time that I can recall that I've thrown five or more 12s in one hand.
Sure.
But
Sure.
when it happens, you got to be ready. There's no need to be bashful.
Well, that's
you're playing with house winnings, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah. At that point, might as well see if you can get some more. I wanted that hit at 500. I did. I didn't get it, but I wanted that 3,000 coming in. In fact, I was going to take them to house max anyway. I'd already decided, well, hell, I'm just going to go for it. But didn't get there.
What was max 3 or 5,000? What was max?
I was thinking it was 5,000, but I was told later that they'll only let you go to 1,500 on the 2 and 12.
Bless their hearts.
So I would have been there. I would have went straight to it. I'd have went straight to 1,500.
You're right there. You're fantastic.
Yeah. But for the sake of our listeners that don't know your background, but might want to know a little bit about your background, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to somebody today who's not only a great craps player, but he had a very, very successful career in the movie industry. And he specialized, and feel free to correct me, Dean, as we go through here, but you were in the makeup and creation of designs for science fiction movies and so forth. I know you spent what, like 7 years on Star Trek Deep Space Nine series, I think it was.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of been grown to be known as makeup effects or prosthetic effects. At the time when I was there, these things change a little bit as new generations come along and call it different things. But I came in at the tail end of kind of there was a real renaissance in prosthetic makeup on a technical level. Kind of started, you look at some of your early, you want to look at extreme makeups. We'll look at the horror films and your classic Universal horror films of the early 30s. Just when talkies first came in, there was a guy named Jack Pierce who designed and created the Frankenstein makeup on Boris Karloff, probably, at least used to be one of the most iconic monster makeups of all time. So much so Universal copyrighted it and other studios couldn't use that look. That's why, the bolts on the neck and the square forehead. But those makeups, a lot of those were done as elaborate theatrical makeup, adding layers of cotton and collodion, which was this kind of flexible, stretchy skin material, and building things up layer after layer, or stretch and stipple, making the wrinkles for the mummy. And Karloff was the mummy, or things like that. And before that, there was Lon Chaney Sr., who made up himself and started out in silent movies. He would look on the call sheet every day, and they were shooting 5 or 6 movies at a time on these outdoor lots. There was no sound, so they didn't have to worry about hearing each other yell and scream. And sets were outside in the daylight, so they could get natural lighting. And they would just say, "Oh, we need 5 pirates over here, or 3 beggars over here," or whatever. And he would actually make himself up to look like these characters and then go get the part. It says, instead of the natural guys hanging out that look like old cowpokes or pirates or whatever, just waiting to see if they needed me today. And then, of course, he gets into doing the Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame. So that was early stuff there. Well, we come along and foam rubber gets created and used extensively, really for the first time for The Wizard of Oz. The Cowardly Lion's makeup and all that, where you have this 3-dimensional material that's made. It's like natural rubber from trees and whipped up and put in molds and foamed and like an egg, souffle, and then it's baked.
Right.
And then you glue it on people, and as they move, it actually moves with them. And so the sculptures are made to the life cast, And that was around for a long time. And then, Planet of the Apes in the late 60s, that was monumental to have that many makeup artists doing that. And there's a guy named John Chambers who was a prosthetic designer of makeups for men that were horribly disfigured in the military, and he made appliances all replace noses and ears and cheekbones of people that lost features. And that's still a business today. But he went from that to doing movies, and he did all the stuff in The Outer Limits, and then he made stuff for the original Star Trek, Mr. Spock's ears and things like that, applied by other people on set. And then you get into late 60s, early 70s, and there was a guy in New York named Dick Smith, and he did Dustin Hoffman's Little Big Man, the old, 102-year-old or older makeup there, and that was really an amazing design, and he invented some things. And by the time you got to when I came along, there were, guys starting to do, the American Werewolf in London, and that became a big thing. The makeup effects was huge. This was before computers, before
it was all everything you saw on the screen then was actually there. It wasn't computer generated.
Exactly.
Because now, did you get an Emmy?
I did. I was on. Yeah, I was very lucky to be with a great team of people. It was a collaborative effort. Now I was involved with Star Trek. You mentioned 7 years, which ironically is how long they shot. They did 7 seasons of Next Generation was the first revival show they did starting in the late 80s. There were 7 seasons of that, 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and 7 seasons of Voyager. And they kind of like checkerboarded each other. I was around for the last several seasons of Next Generation. Then I came on and I was with the first 3 seasons of Deep Space Nine that overlapped. And I was full-time the 2nd and 3rd season, which means I was one of 4 key makeup artists that got my name in the credits. Now, those shows will hire extra people on days you have a lot of Klingons or you have a lot of the Cardassian makeups where they needed crowds of makeup. So you had maybe an extra 5 people one day in addition to our 4, or sometimes, 10 or 15 people would come in and make up a whole crowd of people. That wasn't that often, but that would happen. I got in because of my, my background in prosthetics, and I was self-taught. There was no YouTube or anything back then. So, I learned from, looking at just photographs in magazines. There was a couple of books out there. And then I finally, struggled along. I was in college in Florida where I finished a film production degree. And I happened to intern my last year of college with the fella that did the makeup effects on the first Friday the 13th. And he had done George Romero's Dawn of the Dead a few years earlier. I got to assist him in 1980 on his film called Eyes of a Stranger. And I stayed in touch with him. And about 4 years later, he called me to work on the next sequel, Day of the Dead, which was the one where all the zombies are down in the mines. And he had by then knew a lot of younger guys from California. He was out of Pittsburgh, and Tom brought in some other guys who went on to have huge careers. And he remembered me from Florida. I came in and did some minor stuff. I brought also a team of people that I had assembled in Florida, some great talented folks where I was working when I got out of college and trying to convince people to do more makeup effects in Florida. But they, that was coming around. But based on that, I ended up going up to work for Dino De Laurentiis, the Italian producer who had a studio in North Carolina. And that's when I started getting on really big movies and key in my own department. Got to work with Stephen King on a film called Maximum Overdrive, Arnold Schwarzenegger on Raw Deal, David Lynch on Blue Velvet, which is first time I met and got to kill Dennis Hopper. And then, I met a lot of people from LA at that time, and a good friend of mine who also worked he was the key guy on Blue Velvet. I just came over for a little bit of work and for a couple of days, but I got to work on killing Dennis Hopper. And my friend Dean remembered me, and when he made it out to Los Angeles, he brought me. He called me up, said, "You want to come out to L.A.?" The first time I flew out to L.A. with a job. Never thought I'd cross the Mississippi River. I went out and we worked for Roger Corman, who was a famous low budget filmmaker, but we made a couple of films there. I reconnected with folks I'd met, and before you know it, I was doing Monsters and other projects, and then I eventually got in the union through another lady, June Westmore, that I had met in North Carolina. She was out working on Star Trek, and she got me on the show. And then my buddy Dean happened to be independently, was on that show too. And then we worked there, and then we had a team of folks. We got nominated 2 years in a row for an Emmy, and we won the second year. And so I actually have the statue, but it was like 5 or 6 of us all on the team. We all got statues. So it was a team effort.
That's what I was going to ask, because I noticed you got, was it on The Abyss that you got one as well?
On The Abyss,
you were on the team.
I was on a team, and I worked in just visual effects because of my background. You have the ability to be a sculptor, mold maker, and that can relate to other aspects of the business. So I worked for the model department that made all the underwater environments for the Abyss, where the submarines crash into and all. And I was on that team. There was probably 200 or plus people that worked on the visual effects for the Abyss, which was one of the first movies to have a character fully computer animated. That water pod, that was made by computers, and that was very cutting edge at the time. This was before Jurassic Park and all that. And then James Cameron's next movie, Terminator 2, had the Liquid Man walking around, and that really advanced the computer digital stuff. But we did everything practical in that, and so I was on the team. Now, the visual effects won an Academy Award, but when you have over 200 people, they nominate the head of the department, and
I got you.
And so the gentleman that headed up that department, he stood up there by himself and got his Oscar. But but listen, you're at that point, you are a teeny cog in a giant wheel. So, but on Star Trek, my supervisor and boss on Star Trek, Michael Westmore, comes from a long line of very famous makeup artists in Hollywood. Michael's father was makeup artist on Gone with the Wind, and him and his brothers and his uncles worked on many movies. And Mike supervised all those Star Trek shows of the 80s and 90s, and it was a great boss, a great leader, and we had a lot of really hardworking people on the team. And he was very gracious to include as many people as he could to get the nomination, because Mike had won an Oscar for the movie The Mask, not the Jim Carrey Mask, but the one with Cher. And
in
The Sun.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a very nice, very good movie. And Mike, probably has 15 Emmy awards. So was wonderful to include as many people as possible in all our shows. So when we won, not only us four and him, but also the folks that worked in the lab, and he was just assign us to the different shows and say, you're going to be on, if the wins for this one, you'll get that. And so it was a great example of leadership, and people, all of us working under a lot of pressure. So it's a job you really have to enjoy doing, because the hours were tremendous. I mean, it was.
I mean, you worked with Dino De Laurentiis, George Romero, Brian De Palma, James Cameron, you mentioned, Roger Corman, and Steven Spielberg. I mean, you worked with some giants in this industry, man. And as a peon who sits on a sofa, that's very impressive.
Well, thank you. Well, it's like my grandfather used to say, everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. So all those people, they have some talent, a lot of ability, and there's a lot of luck involved. And sure. I was very lucky to be at the right place at the right time. But my favorite definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And, you got to be somewhat prepared and be ready to recognize opportunities when they come along. And you got to be willing to jump on and do it and take risks.
That sounds like a craps game to
It
me.
does, doesn't it? So we're getting back.
You got to be
back-
prepared. You got to be ready to jump on it. What was it? Luck is what?
Luck is
When-
when
It's
opportunity
when opportunity
meets preparation.
Yep.
So yes, you got to be
It's a craps
prepared.
game.
It's a craps game. When the opportunity comes along and the table is, the metaphysical is working and things are looking great, you got to be prepared to grab that bull by the horns and know, and be prepared to know your betting and your pressing and your aggression if you want to do that, or however it is that you feel best to go. But you can't just sit there and keep the same bet up and keep just winning the same bet every time it hits and not be pressing up or whatever.
So
you-
I'm gonna
Yes.
my interviews go all over the place, and with you, I can tell we're just gonna go like this all. I mean, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there.
Well,
we're
that's
gonna
what
go,
that's what friends do, right? You just talk. You talk
But,
about
I mean, I've known you. How long we known each other? 5, 6 years, something like that.
about that. I'm trying to think. I met you. The first time I met you was with Heavy at Nate's house, I believe. There was a get together there, and we went out. And I remember who all was there. I'm pretty sure that might have been when I had that big roll at the link my last day, and there was only G-Man
You
was there
did.
with me. And
I was
later
already on the plane.
I went back and wrote about it. Yeah, it was like Tuesday because things kind of, it's for the weekend. People kind of stay Monday, and I stayed one extra day. And literally, we went to the link and just thought, well, we'll just sit there and mess around a little bit. And all of a sudden, boom, there was another monster roll, hit the ATS and a Fire 6. So, ooh, that was, and I think I had $5 on the Fire, which, there. So there was $5,000 there. And then the ATS, well, I think I don't know if I was doing 10, 10, 10 across or 5, 10, 5 at that time. I probably wasn't quite as aggressive as I am now on the Fire bet. But that was like a lazy nothing day by the exit. And eventually the table has 3 people deep, and folks were trying to get their money in, and all those dealers who were pretty obnoxious in the beginning. It's those, gals from, I don't know if they're from somewhere in Asia, they're there just, treating you pretty rough. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, whatever you want to do. I'm not questioning your betting anymore. And people throw money down, and they've got like $7 on the Fire bet. And they're literally picking the money up and throwing it back, going, no, you can't bet that. It's like, get out of here. Let this guy shoot. And so that was quite funny. And security guards were there. And then all of a sudden on a Tuesday, I look up and there are 5 suits in the pit.
Yeah.
All kind of going like, looking around, making phone calls, doing whatever. But, no heat. I mean, they weren't anywhere near.
They were just watching.
Just
they
watching.
just watching, make sure it was all legitimate. That was it.
But interestingly, when you have a Fire 6 hit, that payout's going to trigger a 1099. And that's one reason why they took them out of Vegas. I wonder why they all went away from Vegas at one time. And I kept asking around until finally I got a reasonable answer. They said, well, when that bet hits, they got to stop and fill out the forms and the paperwork and take IDs, and they got to go around to everybody. They had something on there.
Well, they've lowered payout, and it's back in there again now.
Yeah.
And that's probably why. We'll use that as an excuse as to why they lowered it.
I saw it lowered other places, but had not. When it came back, I didn't see it lowered in Vegas, but I wouldn't doubt that they follow suit.
Well, when I was in Vegas, and I don't remember the payouts, but I was on the table where a friend of mine threw a 5-point, and that was a nice payday just on 5.
Sure.
And I didn't get a 10. I didn't get a what is it? W2G? Did not get that.
1099G.
Whichever it is.
And it's if you get paid over a certain amount on a one bet. It's like one bet, if it hits, that pays you this much. Most crap bets, that it's cumulative. You're getting, your box number, this and that, the other, and it all adds up. You go you can win $20,000 and it's not going to trigger because one single bet didn't get you $5,000 or whatever. I don't know, whatever the limit is. But when that one thing triggers that's why slot machines, there's a one time, you get that one payout, all of a sudden it's like jing, 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 and they want to come over and write you the thing.
That one's $1,200.
Yeah, it's not much.
On a slot.
It's more on the craps, the table game. I don't know what that exactly is. And interestingly, the one lady suit came around, and while I'm throwing, after it was hit, she started tapping everybody in the show, saying, "Fill out your paperwork." And I'm throwing and throwing, "Fill out your paperwork." She's coming all the way around, and I always try to play stick right one or two, and she finally gets to me and makes me stop shooting. So, "Fill out your paperwork." And so a little bit of heat there, whatever, or something. Yeah. So I'm filling my
breaking
paperwork,
it up,
and I'm going like, okay, here it is. Now back then, I was really, I've kind of worked to where I don't, focus as hard. I've kind of gotten more now muscle memory, and I don't have to really, laser beam it. I still block everything out, but I'm more relaxed when I do it now. Back then, I was more intense. So a session like that would really drain me. I tend to have to say I got to walk away and take a walk and rest for a while because I was so focused and focusing really hard and not letting anything bother me. I do that better now without tensing up. But once that happened, it didn't really play a head game with me. But I said, hey, it's been a long roll. It's been great. Let's just keep going. And I think 3 more rolls, and the ugly number showed up. But
all right. So go ahead.
But I literally, G-Man and his wife, G-Lady, I call her. I don't mention names. I don't have permission to talk about them that way.
Right.
But I said, at one point, I looked and said, I could miss my flight. But at this point, I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah,
I could buy 3 times the ticket. Honey, I'm heading home in style because I missed my flight and I'm going to get a more expensive ticket to come home later. But we rushed out and hopped in their car, and they rushed from the airport. Right from there, I already had my bag in their car. They dropped me off. I made my flight. So I literally was security guards, the suits, by the door, my own drivers. It was like the celebrity moment there, getting out of there. But it was fun.
All right. So you mentioned Darth Nader earlier when we met up at Nate's house. So he gave you the handle.
He did, and it might have been the same weekend where I met you. I
think it was.
Yeah, he was there. It was like, I always tell the story. It goes like this. It goes, I'm there playing, and Darth comes up to me, and he goes, "Your technique is impressive, young dice setter. Your lack of discipline disappoints me." And then I woke up off the floor. He was gone. And I decided I should start practicing harder at that point. Yep. And he had a card that was laying on my chest that said, "Dean the Machine." So there you go. That was my, that was when I met Darth Nader. It wasn't quite like that, but Darth's been great. He's been out here to visit. We've gone up. I picked him up at the airport, and we've gone up to Black Hawk to shoot and had fun one weekend. And
he's been cheating. I didn't know he'd been to Black Hawk.
It was a while back. It was Uncle Mel was there, and that motivated him to show up. And
I do remember that now. Now that you mentioned it, that's been a few years ago.
It was right around when I saw you in Black Hawk. I know you were there about 2 years ago, and a little over 2. It was 2 years in September, I think. And that weekend, I would have come up and spent more time, but I was Denver area, there's a number of horror conventions, and I'm been invited a few times ago as a guest. As we mentioned, it's not. I mean, the few people that are interested in the things you've worked on, any movie I found out, the most obscure title, the cheapest, the weirdest, whatever little thing you might have worked on, somewhere there are people who that movie means something to them. And it's hard to explain. Maybe the actors or the age they were when they saw it, they just made an impression on them. I'm corrupting young minds, I guess, in the work that I did 30 or more years ago. But you go to these conventions now, and there'll be a number of actors there that have worked on, might be known for the horror genre. A few people, sometimes I meet people I haven't seen in 30 years. I worked with them back in the day, and it's nice to have a little reunion. But I'm there with my table, and we'll show a movie I worked on, and I get to kind of do a live commentary, which is really fun. I mean, it's fun to be in the room with folks that know the film, appreciate it. And you stop at any time and you say, here's how we did this effect, or over here, this happened, or that's how, oh, look at this, that was a mistake, but you don't notice it. And, people, they love it. And so, I was, with that weekend that you were here, I was committed there, and it was a lot of fun. And then I think Sunday night after it wrapped, I ran up and I saw you and a few other buddies up there, and we threw a little
Low-Eye
bit.
Johnny and
Yep.
Low-Eye Johnny and 220 Inside were there. And
Yeah.
they didn't play with us. You and I went out and played at the tables that night.
I think we did.
We had some brown water.
We did at the Maristar. You guys were there with a group that had kind of access to the high end lounge or whatever. And Bullet.
We drank a lot of Bullet.
Bullet whiskey or something. What was it?
That whole weekend. We almost ran them out of Bullet. We had to go borrow Bullet from the bar and bring it into the high limit lounge.
Well, I think I was there for the one grade. We went there one time. I went with you, and we talked, sipped on a little bit, and it was very nice. And we went out and played a little.
I know we played. You and I played. You were at stick right. I was at stick left.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else was even on the table, but
that was at the
Maristar.
It was at Maristar. Yeah, that's right. It was at Maristar. We were there. We went right out and played there. Yeah, I like the Maristar tables. It's my favorite, really, here in the area. They tables are short. They're not real bouncy, and not that I always have success there, but when I do, it does well. I mean, I've enjoyed playing there at Ameris, and they're open 24. It's the only table in Blackhawk's open 24/7.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would have thought places like the Monarch or maybe even Harrah's or someplace.
No, Harrah's is the Caesar property there is now a Horseshoe, and they've got two tables. They have a regular and they have a crapless. Crapless is very bouncy, and during the week, I tend to go up during the week, it's less crowded. For some reason during the week they only have the crapless open, and it's a tough table to navigate. I'll play a few rounds there, and if it's not looking good, I'll just walk away and go up to Maristar, because when things aren't looking so great, that can last a whole lot longer than your bankroll. And if I have an opportunity to walk someplace else,
especially on crapless, because there's so many numbers to cover.
Oh yeah.
And if you're not throwing those extremes, you don't need to be on that table anyway.
And you can't play a don'ts if things are looking bad. You can say, "Oh, I'll flip over for the don'ts for a while." No, that didn't happen. You can't do that. So anyway, so Blackhawk's fun. It's nice to get away to. Not quite as when I lived near Lake Tahoe back during the pandemic. I was real close to Lake Tahoe, about half as close. So I could be up over the hill to South Lake Tahoe in a half hour. And the Harrah's at Lake Tahoe love getting short tables, not real bouncy. All the dealers been there for years. They make enough money off all the folks that come in that don't know a whole lot. They don't really pay attention to what you're doing. They don't know heat. They were very, very nice group of people there at the Harrah's. But then there were times when those tables weren't very nice, for some reason. But you could go over to it was a Hard Rock, independent Hard Rock, and then across the street is Harvey's. But Harvey's was a long, bouncy table. Regular craps, just decided never to play there. So it was either, but Tahoe, again, a smaller venue, a lot of folks there in the wintertime going skiing, and just a nice vibe there, nice, healthy, it just seemed like people are happy and it's very spirited, because they're not really there necessarily for the gambling. It's a side thing they're doing, like being on a cruise ship. People are just kind of having fun.
First time I ever played craps was in Tahoe.
Really?
Yep. That was the first time I ever played. And there was a casino. I know where you're talking about, where Harvey's and what's across the road? Harrah's.
There's a tunnel that connects them.
Yeah. All right. But back then, there was a casino down the road a little bit, across the road from the lake. And back then, I swear it was a Caesars. I don't know what it is now.
It might have been the one I did a little hit when I lived there. I was looking up the history. There was one, it was called, I don't want to say the Aladdin, but it had that kind of name. And that one, I believe, might be where eventually they built what's now is the Hard Rock. Or further
That's
down,
what I was wondering.
there was one that closed a little further north around the lake, just a little bit. I mean, they're all concentrated right there on state line. You know, the state line in California. California has a lot of restaurants and no gambling, restaurant shows, boutique shopping. They and it was funny during COVID, all of that was closed, or you had to eat in the cold out on the sidewalk. You sit on the curb, they throw the food at you, because you couldn't be in the restaurant. But yet on the Nevada side, it was like, hey, room for business. Come on, you wear a mask if you want. Who cares? Let's have fun.
Yeah.
So you work away right at state line, right on the line is Harvey's and Harrah's, and then you back up, and then closer to the lake is Hard Rock. And then there was one that closed because of COVID, and they actually said, thank you for 35 years, we're out of here. And then I never even walked in there because they closed down. And then across from that is now a Bally's, but it was, I think they called it the Monarch. And it was independent. And that was one up from Harris. And that was really about it.
There's not that many. I'd say 5 back then or whatever.
About what there is now. And then you go all the way around to the north border of the lake. And was at one time the Cal Neva. And that was at one time owned by Frank Sinatra. And it was a casino and bungalows, been closed about 15 years, maybe longer now than maybe 17 years now. They keep talking about reopening it back up. There's a small casino, a lot of bungalows to stay in, and supposedly there is a tunnel. It goes down and goes all the way down to the lake, underground, from in there. Somehow, I don't know what, they make it sound sinister or whatever, but I think it's just, so it was a tourist thing or whatever. But Sinatra owned it back in the heyday. And a lot of folks don't realize that they're all small rooms there. But there was a lot of performers were in Reno and Lake Tahoe. I mean, those rooms were little, but they had Sinatra and Elvis and I don't know, Captain Tennille and whoever all performed there. Don Rickles.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the Dean Martin, Johnny Carson list of Rat Pack stars all were up there performing and doing stuff. It was just a fun place to go. But there were no huge venues. Although now they've built a couple. There's a big outdoor venue behind Harvey's outdoor venue. They have a lot of country western acts and people come in there.
Right.
And then across the street, behind what is now on the away from the lake, a big venue is just built. It was not finished when I left there. They're behind what now is Bally's. They just rebranded it. And that's supposedly a really large arena there. I don't know if it's enclosed or what it is, but they built. So they do now have some large arenas to attract some big names up there.
All right. So going back into one of my curveballs.
Yes.
In our conversation, let's talk a little bit about James Bond, because you got a connection there. James Bond had there's only one scene ever with James Bond playing craps, right?
Exactly. Diamonds Are Forever.
And Natalie Wood's sister played Plenty O'Toole. So let's talk about that. And then we'll talk about another one too here that was filmed in Vegas, obviously.
Okay. But I remember early on in Casino Tears, I learned.
Yeah,
I learned at the time how big Bond fan you are, and me too. The Bond movies were a huge influence growing up, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of people that worked on some of the older Bond films, and mainly Ken Adam, who was the production designer on all of Sean Connery's, all the early Sean Connery films. Very that distinctive, the big layers, the giant, rocket silo from You Only Live Twice, and the all those beautiful sets with the circles and the, just
Right.
amazing. At that time, inspiring, bigger than life. The first time, as a kid or young man, seeing that stuff going like, I said, this place looks cool. Well, the man that designed all that, I worked on the second Addams Family movie, Addams Family Values, the second one that had Raul Julia, the two with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston. And I worked on the second one, and Ken was there, and I got a chance just to say hi to him and just, thank him for all his great work. He probably was well into his 70s at the time. This was 30-something years ago. So, he was a young man working on the Bond pictures starting in the very early 60s. And then the first Bond movie I ever saw in the movie theater was Diamonds Are Forever in, 71, I believe. They had the first Mach 3 or Mach 1, the fastback
Mustang.
the red
Yeah.
Mustang, beautiful car. It was showcased in that film. They did a lot of, from the time the Mustang was introduced in Thunderball in 64 or so. Ford provided cars for the Bond films. That was in addition, of course, the Aston Martin, which was the first time a prop or something from a movie became like its own celebrity and toured the World's Fair.
I
went to the World's Fair with my father in 64, 65, and they had it there. And it was like this, became bigger than life thing. And I think Ford jumped on that and started providing them after Goldfinger provided them all their cars. So there's that red Mustang that Jill St. John and Connery are driving around, and they had that chase scene on Fremont Street, which now is covered with the canopy, and you can't drive there. But they drive up, and the cops pull him over there at the Four Queens, and the guy just says, "Yeah, we've been looking for you. Give me your whatever." And he just smiles and pulls away, and they had that big chase scene up and down the street. And then the one point they go behind, what kind of like Binions, and there's supposedly a parking lot back there. They have the big chase, so they crash all the cars. And as they're leaving that chase, the final cops chasing him, and Bond sees this very narrow, alleyway that the car couldn't fit through. And it says, pedestrians only. And the cop says, "We got him now." And of course, then you see the car go up on two wheels and goes right down the alley.
And that was a live shot, right?
Well, that was a live shot. And
Absolutely.
And the man that drove that car when you first goes into the tunnel was a stunt man by the name of Buzz Bundy. And I happen to remember his name because a few years earlier in the late 60s, the Wide World of Sports would show around the world. Well, there was some car stunt competition that went on, and the Wide World of Sports would show up, and they would film the guys putting the cars on two wheels and going around the track. At that time, every car, the driver's side was down. It was easier for the driver to go on the ramp and get that passenger side up and drive with the driver's side down, because you lean against the door, and no one except one man could drive with the driver's side up, and that was Buzz Bundy. And he had developed a thing he stuck in the window. He had a pole he would hold on to, and he would go up and have the driver's side up. So the bottom of the car would be facing inland to the track, and he'd always have the Wide World of Sports in the bottom of his car, and they'd always mention his name. So, well, just a few years later, all of a sudden, they were always trying to put new and interesting stunts in the Bond films. I guess they got buzzed and said, "Can you drive the car on two wheels and go down the alley?" Now, what you don't realize when you watch the movie, they are in location in Vegas, but when they do, they get back to that garage or the parking structure where he crashes all the car. They're chasing him over things and all that. That was actually filmed at Universal Studios. So when they drive around the corner, that's not really the parking lot behind Binions or wherever they are.
Right.
They're actually Universal Studios, and they got to set up and have the stuntmen, and they own the parking lot. It's there. They dress it up, and they can shoot for a week doing all those stunts. So when you see him drive away and then go up on two wheels, that's Buzz driving the driver's side up. When you watch the movie, as it's going through the alley, they cut to the close-up of Jill St. John, the passenger seat, as I'm looking at it, and Sean Connery, and you see him up in the air, and they're going like this. She's screaming, oh, and then for some unknown reason in close-up, you see the car go flat, and then Jill goes up in the air, and then you cut out on the street, and they kind of fake the where they're on one of the side streets, and you see the car come out with the driver's side down, and it lands on Fremont and then drives away. And I thought it was just very humorous to see that switch in there. I mean, I was always interested, even back then, film production, the editing, and I thought, well, what a fun thing they did. I thought, but why did they, you kept thinking, why did they do that? I mean, it was kind of interesting, but it was fun. I never knew. Well, now we move forward. That was in around 71. Well, now you get to the late 70s and Dukes of Hazzard, another film show you guys talked about. Well, the Dukes of Hazzard, there's about 5 or 6 episodes in that show where the Duke boys take the General Lee and they go up on a curve and the car goes up on 2 wheels and goes riding along on 2 wheels. Again, driver's side up. Well, Buzz Bundy.
That Al Bundy?
Buzz.
Okay.
Oh, Buzz. Buzz is driving for those.
I'm thinking of the TV show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, now we move forward another bunch of years, and now it's like 1989, 1990. I'm in L.A., and I'm working on a movie called Maniac Cop 2. And I designed, one of the, for me, it was a milestone for me because I got to design, kind of a unique movie monster. And, there was a one, and they made him look totally different. I got to design the makeup, put on the actor, really got to work with a lot of great bad guy actors who are all just sweethearts of people and not nearly as nasty as they look on camera. And Bob Zadar, who plays Maniac Cop, he's got this big jaw. Anyway, the movie is not just a horror film, it's a huge action picture. And we had a stunt coordinator, Spiro Rosado, who is now very famous for, he did a lot of the Fast and Furious movies, big car chase guy. But back then he was, he wasn't just starting out, but he was young and doing a couple of cool things in that movie. And I'm talking to him one night, and they got a couple extra stunt guys there driving cars that are flipping over and stuff. And he said to me, I'm really excited tonight. I got a guy that was a hero of mine, Buzz Bundy's here. And I go, what? I go, my God, he has to be 70 years old. I mean, or, whatever. He's driving, still doing stunt driving, So I go and find him, and I go, Buzz, Dean Gates. And I'm saying, tell me about Diamonds Are Forever. I said, I just loved it, the movie, but how come the car switches positions? Why did they do that? And he goes, he told me about it. Universal Studios was the parking lot. And he said, I drove it going in. When it came time on location in Vegas to drive the car coming out, he says, I was booked on another project. I couldn't work. Had to get a different stunt man. He says, and at the time, if and I go, you're the only guy who could drive with the driver's side up. He says, well, so the other stunt man had to do it with the driver's side down and come out and land. And he says, so when they go to do the rear screen projection of the close-up of the actors in the studio, in a car, they could put on a gimbal. They just figured out to do the switcheroo thing, which makes no sense whatsoever, but it's just fun when you see it happen. And that's how that came through. So we've connected the Dukes of Hazzard to James Bond to Craps. So there it is.
Well, let's talk about James Bond and Craps real quick, because I think his bets pretty much.
He walks up and says, he puts down he says, like a stock of give me a stock of chips. And he gets it's like $5,000 or something, I believe. And it's kind of off. It's not really focused on what he's doing, because Plenty sees him and she thinks it's her next sugar daddy, and she's talking him up. And that was the lines, which I know where she says, hi, I'm Plenty. And he goes, named after your father, perhaps, No. She goes, Plenty. He goes, oh, of course you are. Looking down at her. Of course you are. And Plenty O'Toole. He goes, named after your father, perhaps, right? And then you hear him, he rolls, and you hear him say, gentleman has a 4, made a 4. So that's his point, right? And what's he say? He says, give me all the odds, which I guess he means maximum odds on the 4, because he says all the odds. So I don't know all the odds. And then what else? He has maximum odds on the floor.
I think he went. I know he had $100 on all the hard ways.
That's it. Oh, maybe hard four. Is all the hard ways or hard four?
No, it was all the hard. He said $100 on all the hard ways. I think he went 5,000 on all the numbers, and then he threw in a yoke. He threw in a
yeah.
$200 11 or something.
You know, I had it written down here too. Because back when you guys first talked about it, I actually looked. I watched the scene, wrote everything down, and looked it up, and I had the notes here somewhere, but I couldn't find them this evening. But I know that the thing is, you know, the art of movies, they cut away from their action and then over where Jill St. John's walking around doing something, trying to get the bear with the diamonds in it or something. And Q is there, you know, making the slot machine work. And then she sees the woman turn into the ape and then she escapes. Then they cut back to Bond and now he's done his magic and he's cashing out. And they even have the square chips, which I've never seen anywhere, and they must be $1,000. What do those square guys mean?
You know, I have no idea. I think they're more European. I don't think you see them.
And why?
If you do, it's.
Yeah.
I would say now it's probably at least a $10,000 check. I don't know.
Well,
I
of
don't
course.
know. I mean, I've seen $10,000 chips, or have I? I've seen $5,000 chips.
That's a chocolate.
I don't think I've ever.
Chocolate chips.
I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever seen a $10,000.
I haven't
chip.
either. They have bananas,
That might be the square one. Might be 10,000, and I think you'd have to go into a really high, ultra exclusive.
Well, I can't imagine
area
actually being there at Circus where they were, and Circus had only been open for a year or two. That was the guy who built the first. Now, of course, we'd had Caesars, and then was real classy high end there on the Strip. And then the guys that built the Tropicana were trying to emulate Caesars, but the Tropicana was just imploded. They're going to build that's the
baseball
stadium, which they threatened to do at the Rio, but that never happened. So now they're doing it there.
That would have been a good thing. That would have been a good thing to do to the Rio.
Well, I think. Didn't El Dorado spin the Rio off? They finally just sell it. I think they sold it off to some other independent group. But yeah, Rio's seen better days. But in the Tropicana doubles, they're across the street. Actually across the street from the Tropicana, where the Excalibur is today, is the gas station that we first see the Mustang when he meets her at the gas station and they get in the Mustang and drive off to go toward downtown. That gas station was right across the street from the Tropicana at the time, at the intersection there. But the guy that built Circus, I was reading the book. I think it was called Super Casino. Very interesting read. Pretty a harsh look or a very negative look at Vegas. But the guys that were trying to instigate the big lavish casinos, and Circus was the first attempt at it. When they opened it, when you entered Circus, the only way to get to the casino floor, everyone had to go down a slide. It was like, of course, after, back then everyone was dressed up and the women in their dresses and all trying to go down the slide, and their, high heels are getting in people's backs, and then people are dropping their drinks and cutting their butts on the glass. And it was a big, mess up for about a month, and they finally took all that out with stairs to get down to the casino floor. And then also the Circus is the movie Casino, the Joe Pesci character who was sent out from the mob to kind of watch what was going on. The guy that built Circus now wasn't connected to the mob, but the bank he used was. And they said, well, we're going to send a fella out because all the money got sent back east, when they made their payments and all. And we got a request. We have a fella we're going to send out. He just wants to totally run the gift shop and keep all the money from the gift shop. We owe that to one of our friends of the bank. And that was the Joe Pesci character who came out and was obnoxious and I think got whacked off or what, got whacked or whatever. Not whacked off, but he got whacked. And then, so that was based on the guy that actually came out and ran and got very egregious and kind of nasty running the gift store at Circus back in the late 60s, early 70s. And it got taken out. But so anyway, so Bond does his best. And then afterward, when he's counting up all his money, it's like they're stacking everything up, and they say, "Here's how much you have," and he gives the guys for sterling service for the sterling service, and he gives them I don't know what, $10,000 or something, and then she goes, "Why, that's $35,000 you got," and he goes, "And 5,000 for you, that leaves 30 for me," and he walks away, something like that. But if you kind of listen carefully, you can figure how much he bought in for, how much he walked away with, because he gives them a certain amount. She says how much he's got left over, and he gives her like 5,000 or something, and then
she goes, "Hey, you've done this before," and he went, "Just once."
Yeah. Says, "You handle those chips like a monkey," or something like a monkey handles coconuts, or something like that.
Yeah,
cute line.
So
everything. I one time on a cruise ship going from Rome to Barcelona, we stopped in Monte Carlo, and put on our tuxedo and evening gown, and we went to the casino in Monte Carlo, the big casino, which does not have craps. They've got the French name for the Iron Road, Fleur de something. It means the Iron Road is what Baccarat is known as. And they're playing Baccarat and 21. And I think they had roulette. But Baccarat's nowhere on the ground floor. And the ground floor is still, even though everyone's all dressed up, it's a tourist attraction. You pay money just to walk in. If you want to play, you can. And they got the roulette, with the, two wings, two readouts, boards on either side, the table in the middle, everyone's sitting around. But to play, the Iron Road, to play Baccarat, you had to go upstairs, and that was invitation only. And they had guards at the thing, and you couldn't. So we go see. He goes, "You have an invitation?" No. So they get to see Bond's favorite game, the European version.
He played a lot of Baccarat movies for sure.
Yeah. And there's only one casino. I found one casino that did have craps. It was very Americanized craps. There was one little casino, and that was the big one, the Grand Casino. Does look like a museum, beautiful artwork, very lavish, and it's been represented in several films. Very, very. It's like you're walking into a wing of the like some fancy French chateau or whatever. But there's several other casinos. There was one, I found one that had craps, and it looked very Vegas-y-ish or Indian casino-ish when you walked in, and neon lights and all. And there was a craps, and the dealers were calling everything in English. They were saying, it was all English, as they were calling everything. I watched, and I just didn't, I don't, when I don't have a good amount of time to play or whatever, I'm just going to just jump in and play a little bit and leave. So, and we had to get back to the ship, and we had a nice evening. My wife was with me, so we just kind of watched what they were doing. It was fun and neat to see, but looked like it is a straight up game, as we'd see here in the States.
You do a lot of travel play. I mean, I know you do cruises on occasion. How many cruises a year do you do usually, do you think?
It increased recently. I mean, once, you do one or two, they start throwing offers at you. So my wife and I were fortunate to have the time to break away and go. But we've been averaging about, the last few years, we've been averaging about 2 a year. I just got off one in, November. Was the least eventful, played every day, and it was an NCL cruise. Table was great. It was short, not real bouncy. Dealers, a lot of the cruises I've noticed have all the dealers are from the Philippines, very, very professional, do a great job, appreciate when you tip them. but no action. And you have one table. I play a little bit every day, and it just was a slow drain. And so I, just show up and nothing was happening. I'd leave, keep coming back. Never saw
Right.
anyone it was the first time. I've had a few where I've done very well, walked away, well ahead, and had one. We went down toward the Mayan ruins off of Cozumel, and it was very few people. One of the fewest. There was a couple of high rollers that sat there. They were almost there every time I showed up. Very few people showed up, and got dice quite often, and had a couple of good runs. Of course, your bet limits are only. I think that table was only like $500. So a couple of times I had the 4 or 10 up to 500 and hit that a couple of times. Couldn't press anymore, but in cruises, far as I've seen, the ones I've been on, there are no bonus bets. It's just straight up craps, no bonus bet.
I think some have it. I don't know which.
I've heard they, yeah.
I've never been on a cruise, so I've heard of it on certain ones, but I don't know if it's Royal Caribbean. I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I've only been on recently, the last couple of years, I've only been on NCL and Royal Caribbean. And, they're both very nice. They, it just depends. I mean, the thing is, if things aren't doing well, you can't just go down the street and go to another casino, or you can't say, I want to switch tables. All the
You're
ones I've been on
limited.
only have one
You're
team.
highly limited.
Highly limited. So either it's going to be a good week or not so great. But the thing is, it's not because the crew, tables. I had some weird experience. Had the strangest. There was one young man there 2 nights in a row. This last cruise, table was really packed. He was always down at the other end. There was a couple of ladies down there that were always playing, which, you don't see a lot of single ladies just in a group playing, but they were back. I guess they like craps. And I noticed that one night, he was giving them a hard time about something. He was playing the don'ts. And if you didn't hear what he was saying, he looked pleasant. He smiled. He seemed affable. But, he was cheering himself when people lost, when he played the don'ts. He was doing all the wrong things. You'll be a don't player. And I'm speaking from someone who started out. I only played don'ts until I got into, dice influence or practicing my throw. I never threw. I was a don't player for a long time, and quietly just sat there and sometimes made really good money, and then sometimes I just hold back and grind it out, But you don't sit rubbing in people's faces when you're winning. You just quietly pick up your bets and just let the dice move on, or you inside you're cheering, but you're very neutral about it. You want to be respectful because most people are there to cheer and win on the positive side, but. The table's not looking great. I'm since I started out playing don'ts, I have no qualms going to the dark side as long as I don't have friends or people I'm going to be upsetting about that. So anyway, but this guy, it was weird. He was really going on, giving them a hard time. In fact, the ladies left. He was just going like, "Oh, I'm gonna knock you off. You're not going to win. You shouldn't be doing this. This is really. Oh, you're going to lose your money." And but somebody's like, "Oh, I mean, he wasn't angry. A lot of those guys tend to be very unhappy, angry people that act like that, and the few. But he was razzing them, and I knocked him off. He was losing money when I was up. I mean, I was one of the few times I was doing well, and they started eyeballing me a little bit, and like, well, what's that guy doing? And then by the end of the second evening, then there was a lady walks up that that you refer to as a Karen today, and she walks up the second night he's there, and she's there with a drink and kind of, you sometimes on cruises, you see a lot of sloshed people. They're kind of like staggering around. And she's kind of there like watching, and no one was at the end of the table. I said, "Oh, are you going to play? Come on, jump in there." And she kind of says, "No." She goes, "I just want to watch people lose their money." I go, okay. So, no,
There's negative energy.
Yeah, there's
negative energy right off the bat there.
So she finally, but then the two negative Nellies start talking to each other. He's throwing and she's going, and he's going like, he even said, why don't you play? And she's like, I'm going to watch you. And he goes, oh, I'm going to win because I'm playing the don'ts. And, it's like he's losing money. And it's like, it's just like watching a comedy act. I mean, it's really like, like some kind of two comedians, doing this weird bit. She finally leaves. I'm the last guy at the table. He's all out of money. Now he comes around and standing where she's standing, right in the hook around for me. And I'm throwing. And he's quietly just saying, oh, I got to wait for this guy to lose. I want to watch this guy lose. Oh, he's going to lose. He's not doing so good. Now, none of that stuff bothers me. I can just, as long as they're not physically messing with the game, I can tune everybody out. But the dealers are all looking very nervous, and they're not aggressive people. They just want to be professional, play the game, be elegant, and not put up with anyone being weird. But he's just being weird, but he's not being weird to ask him to leave. He's just yammering on. Well, finally, one point, I'm playing and I'm doing fine, but he just keeps going and going. I set the dice down, and I said, hey, I noticed you earlier in the night. What were you talking to those ladies down there? You kind of made them leave the table. And he goes, well, I know. And what are you talking about? And I said, and there was another lady here, and you guys were talking over each other. And, it's like, that's not very polite, and in fact, it's very childish. And I said, all these folks are here working on this ship. They're here for months at a time. And they're not with their children at home. I'm sure they all have families, and they're away from their families making decent money and going home so they can support their families, and they're away from them. I said, it's really sad they got to put up with someone acting very childish like you. And he said, well, they don't, but, and they're all looking like that. And he goes, I said, you really need to go home. You need to go back to your room and think about that, And he's like, well, he just kind of walks off, And I didn't see him for 3 days. He was gone. And then finally the last day he comes back and he's like, well, see, you're still here playing. And I go, well, you're not. What's up? It's just like, I have no more money. He left, Anyway.
Got rid of him for 3 days.
Well, a guy like that, though, in most places, he would have been punched in the mouth. I mean, he would.
Oh, yeah. That wouldn't have lasted in some places.
I mean, I'm not, it's like, I'm fine, it's not bothering me, but it was weird. It was really strange.
Most don't bettors that are professional don't bettors don't even open their mouth. They stand over there in the turn next to the dealer, and they just And when they start laying odds, and all of a sudden they go, take my odds down or bring my bets back. I mean, they're doing it. They're professional at what they're doing. Then you got that knucklehead that's about half drunk, who's down there screaming, 7, throw to 7,
oh, man. Or they're the guys that are just look angry. I mean, they're just like, and they come in and they're watching, and they lay a lot of money down, and they're just sitting there, and then they win it, and they go, they take it off, and they're sitting there, and they lay it down, and then they get knocked off, and they're like, just, dropping the F-bomb and stomping their foot, hitting the ref, and they walk away like, even more to be mad about. Then about 15 minutes later, they come back again. They got to lay another huge stack of blacks down or whatever, and they're sitting there, and then they get knocked away, and they walk away, and they come back. I mean, it's just the weirdest thing. It's like some kind of self-torture or something. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of sad. I mean, you go like, okay, here's the, it's the negative energy that, is just not not the best of the evenings when that's going on.
So one of my favorite stories about you, and I was not in Vegas when this happened, but you were there for one of the meetups with Heavy and the gang, and you had a rough week or rough weekend, as I understood it, and you all ended up downtown at the Fremont, and you didn't even want to shoot because you'd had a bad weekend.
Well, you just say, look, it's not in the cards for me, and I'm just going to have to sit here and I want to hang out and enjoy the company. But if I got to watch also someone get a hot roll and I'm not on it, it's okay, because, you just, I got my limit for the day or something, and you just say, it's all right. I mean, I'm here to learn and see what I can see, but just not you just don't want to keep throwing your money away,
Somebody talked you into shooting, though.
Yep. Yep.
Who was it? Who talked you into it? Darth
I think Darth did. Yeah. I think he said, you just got to get on it. Your spot's open. Just go for it. Come on. And I know you've mentioned you've not had good success playing at the Fremont, if I remember.
I've only played there one time.
Okay.
Just one time.
It's a favorite of the local folks. It's can be crowded, and people can be a little twitchy about what's going on. They want things to work a certain way. I don't know. Could be a not a bad vibe. It's just kind of a different there sometimes. And it's straight up craps. They try to think what maximum odds they've got, but I don't really worry about odds because I'm not playing the don'ts anymore. So I'm not really worried. I don't lay heavy odds, but they don't have, I don't think, huge odds, maybe 10 times, maybe 20. I'm not sure. And, no bonus bet, but they have a novelty thing where there is a box sitting, right in front of the box person. And it's LED lights, and they'll count. And they count how many rolls you do. And at the Fremont, when one shooter, as they're counting the rolls, there is certain numbers. If you hit those numbers, you win prizes. And you go up to a certain amount, and you get a hat. And they're very nice hats. Fremont, beautiful embroidery.
Yeah, I think it's 25. I think it's a 25 roller, you get a hat.
And then if you get up to 50 something or 46 or something, you get a jacket, and a very nice jacket, very subtle, small little, it's a beautiful, like a
windbreaker looking type of thing.
like a London fog, very nice kind of ultra suede. And I've seen them. I have one that's in dark brown. I've seen them in like a neutral gray color, and they got a nice little Fremont, logo. The hat actually says sharpshooter or something on it, or some kind of thing, but they're nicely, they're not cheap. Like the quality you guys put into your gear that 10 Ton puts in the tiers of gear, you get the quality stuff. So, I was there. I started shooting, and Heavy's down there and all, and all of a sudden it's like cranking up, and, just not, I at the time, my betting strategy wasn't as advanced as it is now. I wasn't as aggressive, but I walked away probably $2,000 or $3,000 on the table, just minimum, starting at the minimum. It was a $5, not even $10 table, maybe a $5 table. And I had, it was 52 rolls. And if you made it to 60, the last level you can get to, so I got my jacket. The last level is you got your name on a plaque on the wall as you go out to the parking where the guys, the valet parking.
Right.
They have a whole wall there, which now is gone. The last time I was there, they renovated the entire, very nice renovation on the lobby of the Fremont, the hotel lobby, and going out by the bathrooms and on out the door. All that's been taken out, and maybe they put those plaques somewhere else. But they had, starting at the top, they had, probably 20 across, and the plaques were maybe, I don't know, like 4 by 5 inches, and say this many things on this date and your name, and so you get a plaque. Now, if I had made it that far, by now I'd be down almost on the baseboard. They were way down below. You'd be your hands. There's my name. But I didn't make it that far. But that was it was one of those things. Again, I was in the zone, and when that lands, you feel it. I mean, you all have talked about it. It's like your throw's feeling good, and everything is working, and it just feels like there's this energy that's going on that's all good. And especially when you have other friends you're with, like Heavy and the gang, they're all down there, keeping the space clear for you and not putting their bets down. You don't have to, ask people to move their bets or try to, shoot around them and all that, which is always not
right.
But that was a nice, that was one of the first times I had a really great role in front of some, in front of Heavy and Nate and all of them saw that. And then had another role at couple of probably months or a year later. I came out and Nate will come and join me or join whoever I'm with, and we had a really good role at the Mirage. I was at the Mirage tables there, right in front of the Terry or the Beatles show, and which is now destroyed. I'll tell you something about the Mirage in a second, but that table was working really well, and Nate was with me, and very few of us. And I had a good run at that table, so I've done really well when there's someone around from the community that can talk about it. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I've had a
that's
few.
why you hear the stories.
Yeah, I've had a few by myself when I used to go. When I was going a lot to Lake Tahoe. I had a few really good runs up there, and I've had one really good one at Black Hawk one night. Everyone was doing well, but in fact, I did the ATS, and there was a guy that had 100 on each one. So
there you go.
So he got
nice
$25,000 off of that, around that, I guess. But in the Mirage, they're now repurposing the Mirage to be the new Hard Rock. They destroyed all the front, all the way back to the lobbies and all. I think they're keeping the towers, the rooms are going to stay, and they're going to probably obviously renovate those. I thought they were going to drop the whole place. But you start to feel old when, back when I worked on some minor little films that have become, little cult classics now. I mean, people look back and go like, oh, tell us what it was like in the dark ages working on movies. But the other thing is, when I was working in LA, when times got slow, the nice thing about LA is if you can sculpt and make molds and do stuff, you can go work in theme park development where they're making the study models for theme parks, like Disney, or there's a company that does all the stuff for Universal and things like that. Or at that time, there was always a casino being renovated or being built, and I worked at a place that did design the aquarium behind the Mirage Hotel as it was being built, and we did the underwater city of Atlantis, all out of crystal, and there was a lot of sculptures done and beautiful buildings, and we had these elaborate, the fiber optic lights at the time. I mean, the technology, LEDs are, be the way to go today, but back then, you literally had these bundles of fiber optics that would had their light source above the tank. That tank is huge. I mean, the glass is 6 inches thick. Two pieces was fused together behind the front desk of the Mirage. Giant aquarium, and then those bundles of fiber optics would go under. Then they would split off, and all the little tips would go in parts of these clear acrylic buildings we made, and they would light up and change color. It was very beautiful, and they spent like $600,000 in 1989 building this, of just doing the environment for the aquarium, not part I worked on. The whole aquarium itself, who knows what it cost to engineer that. But I went up there for the installation, and while I was there, Excalibur had just beat out the Mirage opening up, the next new wave of the big theme casinos. And you could walk out on Hollywood, on South Vegas, on Vegas Boulevard there in front of the Mirage, and look down and actually look all the way down and clearly see the castle sitting down there by itself, because they had not built the tower of rooms around it yet. So there was the Tropicana across the street. There was the castle lit up as plain as day. And there were holes. I mean, we were right next to, Caesars was next. And I think there was the Hacienda, or I don't know, whatever, a couple of things down. Aladdin was across the street, which is now Planet Hollywood. But, you could look down and see that castle lit up. And this was before Luxor, before New York, before Mandalay Bay, before all that. So it was kind of cool to be there, work on that. And they were testing the volcano out front, and they were seeing how close they could get palm trees to it. And they kept torching palm trees, and they go, okay, rip that out, Charlie, and get that crane, get that palm tree and move it back 5 feet. And let's see, Steve Wynn wants it big, and And the propane gas that fueled that smelled like pina colada. It was like a coconut pineapple smell. And we were there, and that, I could smell that fragrance would be coming in, going off, and we could walk back behind and look out and watch them blow the volcano being tested. And Steve Wynn was walking around the lobby. This is before it opened, and he was showing people. I heard him say, "I go to Carson City tomorrow to get my license, to get this thing open." They were rushing, and they were trying to beat Excalibur. Excalibur beat them by about a month opening up. But the Mirage was the first. And if you ever read the book American Roulette, which is about the big group of gambling cheats that ran around doing, post betting and things like that, they talked about that when the Mirage was opened up, they didn't tell people. It was the first time that they, back in the old days, you had to physically look out and see people cheating. They had little peek windows and one-way mirrors, and guys would lay on little tracks with binoculars and go up and down. There's a spot there, and the Flamingo guy told me this whole panel up here, they used to run a guy up and down there on a little mechanics dolly, and he'd be looking at people play. Then they finally put cameras in, live feed, but a guy had to be watching. So all those cameras, the chances are, the odds of them watching you while you're there, they'd have to call up and say, "Hey, look at blackjack table number 3. I think a guy's doing something." Then they'd turn on the camera and watch him. But they couldn't be watching all the cameras. They had to be 5 or 6 guys. Well, the Mirage was the first time they would have 24/7 taping of all the cameras. So they could run back and look at everything. Didn't tell people that. When the Mirage opened up, within 6 months, they caught and fired something like 100 and something dealers that were cheating, and like 200, patrons that were cheating, that just ascended on the place.
Were they in some kind of collusion act where, the post betting was, they were doing whatever they were kind of in it together? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes. There's a thing, they talked about this in the book, there's a thing where, I'm trying to think now, there's, I don't know if it's in blackjack or baccarat, where they have sleeves of the chips sitting there. And what the dealers could do is there's a thing where they'd have a fake, look like chips, all, stacked up line there, the angles, and they'd be hollowed out where they could actually have less chips in there than they were showing. And somehow they could remove that. And I don't know, there's something how dealers could cheat, and it would be a collusion. In fact, the guy that wrote the book, and if it's true, everything in that book is very exciting to read. But there was like the top guy saw him one night at the Four Queens, and he was dealing baccarat, and the dealer, the guy said, "Hey," he said, "you look a smart guy, the patron comes up, looked like Chuck Connors or something, like a movie star, he's sitting there, and he goes, I want to talk to you about something. You want to get a cup of coffee or something?" He said, "I know you're new here." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I just got out of school." And he goes, "Well, you're really sharp. You know this game really well." And he said he brought me in, and he kind of said, there's a way you can make money here, a lot more money. And that's when he introduced the idea of, if you can somehow, the deck be stacked to where when a certain number of people show up at the table, you can deal them the winning hands that they can win, and how they were going to work it. It was kind of elaborate, but he claimed that was how he got started. He got kickbacks, and he decided to leave and just join this guy and his group, and they went around working as teams all over Vegas. They even went to England. They went on, had to jump off of a riverboat in Mississippi, to get away from someone who was, ratting them out, and swim to shore, and every kind of crazy thing. And there was a Pinkerton man that was after him for years, and finally rounded them up, and had all the witnesses there. And the main guy knew they were all in the room where they had collusion showing where they were all working together. And the guy just started yelling at the top of his anyway, the main guy with the crew starts yelling at the top of his lungs, knowing that the people in the other rooms could hear. And the folks that saw them could collaborate them cheating, patrons, and so I saw them how they were doing their chips. He just started yelling at the top of his lungs, if anyone here can hear me, if you rat on us, I guarantee you I'll follow you to the ends of the earth when I get out, and you'll regret the day you ratted on me, you know. And so all of a sudden the period attack comes in, he's running all the different rooms, all the people are going like, I didn't see anything, I'm out of here, you know, and they all run out. So I don't know. There's all kinds of great stories about that, but that was he wrote about the thing about the Mirage. And again, whether this guy's the book is very well, it seems like he knows gambling very well. And I looked up and he was on TV shows talking about these techniques, but some people said, like always, there's no, you know, maybe he made all this up. It's a very exciting read about what these guys did and how they did it, but funny stories, but you never know if it's really true or not.
You also go to Kansas City, correct?
I did. My friend Ira lives in Oklahoma, and he's really the first craps friend I made. I would go by myself to Vegas and play, and he saw me one day. I saw someone was kind of watching me, and I was throwing, and I was in my just first starting to attempt to do a little bit of dice influence. I was setting the dice, and on the come out roll, I was trying to throw sevens. You know, I thought, well, that's a great way to make money. Sevens are going to roll a lot, so I'll try to throw them and just stack up my bets. And that was working. I was making some money on that. And after I finished up, he came over and said, hey, man, you know, he said, see what you're doing? He said, that's really cool. He said, I see you're setting the dice and all that. And I go, yeah. So I've been kind of learning. We hit it off, became really good buddies. And he told me that there's groups of people that travel together and play crap. I thought, what? I said, oh my God. He goes, yeah, those people are really good. And, you know, you ought to stay in touch. And we did. And I would go to Vegas just to meet with him. And then he goes to Kansas City when they quite often have a 5 times multiplier for your, your tier credits. So I've been there twice, and he wants to go again here coming up in March. I think they're having another 5 times. Whether I'm free to go, I haven't been playing a lot lately just because I had a lot of extra work and things have kind of occupied my time. I need to take precedent over the fun stuff. And but I may go out there again. But yeah, been to Kansas City now twice, and I've learned a couple of things, about different things to do to kind of juice the tier credit multiplier. Mainly playing the lotto game, and a couple of the multi-card lotto game is Ira's retired engineer, and did a lot of work on systems and stuff for different organizations and high-end aviation and other government organizations. So he's really cool at figuring stuff out. And he kind of saw a thing in the one of them, the multi-card Keno thing, that you can sit there and do a lot of betting and just rack up points without really spending a lot of money. And sometimes you get some money back. So it's just a way to kind of grind away and build up your tier score between working at the tables.
Isn't it funny? Now, you said he was an engineer. There are tons of people that are engineers or engineering backgrounds that love not only to gamble, but especially crap.
Yeah.
And the so-called math guys who probably got an 8th grade education but claim to be math guys beat us up all the time. And they want to ride your ass about you can't do it, it can't be done, all that kind of stuff.
The odds and probability are you'll eventually lose, or yeah, sure.
Well, everybody loses. The 7 always shows, right? But so many highly educated, trained in math, counting, physics, all the disciplines of engineering, they know there's something to it, or they wouldn't be doing it, right?
Well, I think you're right. And what the math number crunchers don't get is that's the ultimate truth of the infinite possibilities of, the casino is running 24/7, the house edge, as long as they just keep turning over and turning over, they will eventually grind ahead and make their money and to pay their rent and insurance and business expense and payroll and make money on top of that, because it's built in that the true odds are not being paid, and they get their vig as it goes along, or they're and it's not technically vig, but they get the odds that are in their favor over playing 24/7. But
Yeah.
any player shows up at different times, and if you can, through practice and knowing what you can do, you got your influence that you can hopefully no control, but some influence because your consistency, and you show up at the right moment. The table is doing this. They're playing for the consistent average, and the math guys go, "This is what the average says is going to be this, and you're going to eventually lose." Well, yeah, if you play 24/7, but there are times when you're winning because it's in your favor. And then if you're down here, it's going to be really tough to try to grind it out because it's in a, and so there's that wave going on. And sometimes it's really choppy, and sometimes it'll be, yeah, I'm riding this one. Oh.
Well, the thing is, the DI knows how to bet it when he's winning, and he knows when to walk away. And I'm going to give you somebody we talked about earlier as an example. James Bond.
Yes.
Bond colored up and walked
He walked
away.
out.
Gave money away, walked away with a bunch more money than it. So Bond,
with a young lady following you,
walked-
eager to help you spend his money,
yeah, she was really eager.
and get thrown out the window.
But yeah, ended up crashing into the bushes or whatever
No,
was down
pool.
below.
Pool.
The pool.
And the
that's
bad
right.
guy
She ended
says,
up in the pool.
"I didn't know there was a pool down there."
But so, knowing when to walk away is part of the overall mentality that a DI has. I mean, you might, sometimes we're happy to walk away after we've grinded our way back to almost even.
Hallelujah.
We walk,
Yes.
but we walk, right?
Sure.
Or we go in and we hit it hard all of a sudden right out of the gate. Guess what? We pretty much walk away right then. We don't sit there and give it all back. And the thing is, and I truly believe that a lot of people are up at some point during the game.
Yes.
And then they stay and leave when they're broke. They've lost it all. They got up and they think it's not going to end, and all of a sudden they're crashed and burned and they're down to nothing in their rack.
And I've been guilty of that in the past.
We all have. We all have.
In some moment you have as I like to call them, a come to Jesus moment, where you say, "All right,
Yeah.
what's this all about? Why am I here? There's an entertainment value. There's a price for that." But you start going beyond that price, and you have to say, do I need to practice harder? Do I need to study harder? Do I need to walk away faster?
Or do you need to get your do you need to get your discipline in check?
Exactly.
And that's the hardest one to do.
It is.
Now,
And I have, especially there was a couple of times when I was, my first educational going to pay to be at events was, with Heavy and Bo. Bo was there as kind of an ancillary, and then eventually it was Heavy, and then with Darth Nader. And I remember being at the Link another time. I've had a lot of success at the Link, and I was there with some guy. We all went over, and it might have been the weekend that you were there too, but we weren't together at that point. And I had a great bankroll. I made money. It was good. And again, that focus thing, I was, okay, it's time to take a break. Because that forced me. I just said, it's like the force has been sucked out of me. It's time to, I did my job. I made it work. It's time to take a little rest. And there was a guy there who was from our group, and he was just begging me not to go. He said, "Oh, you're hot now. Wait for the dice to come around again. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I was like, please, 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 I said, Bill, Ernie, Joe, whatever his name was. I said, come on, man. I said, it's okay, but I need to go take a rest. And there'll be other times, and no guarantee it's going to keep on going, and I'm okay walking away right now. So, he said
That's the key.
Yeah,
Being okay to walk away.
Yeah, it's okay to walk away. The tables are running, and they will, especially in Vegas, where if you're not on the cruise ship or you're somewhere, it's like there's lots of opportunities, and we had a good moment. Let's step away and kind of take stock of what happened, what went good, what went well. Go back and
I call it.
out.
I mean, I always, I learned from listening to some Blue Angels pilots.
Yeah.
One time, that they debrief after every practice.
It's
And so I
do.
think we as craps players, especially if you're with a small group or a group of people that you're playing with, you should stop, go have dinner, go drink coffee, whatever, go to the bar and debrief and talk about how the strategies work,
Sure.
who was doing well, what did you like about it? I mean, we do that when we scout tables.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be down with a small group, kind of like when we went to Black Hawk. It was me, 220 inside, Aloha Johnny, just three of us. Now, there was a private table that I was involved with, as was 220 inside.
Right.
So that took up part of our time. But we came in early a couple of days to do nothing but to try to hit every casino and try to get 2 tosses in per person. And just to scout, minimum tables. Did we like that table? Did we like the bounce? Did we like the way? Did we like the cruise? There was a couple of tables I liked a lot. I think it was at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, they're good guys at the Horseshoe.
Well, but the cruise, when I was there, they just might as well have been, light bulbs.
Yeah.
They just weren't interested in what we were doing. So I was like, I like the table, but I don't like these people.
Right.
And nobody else did either. We didn't go back. So you do that scouting kind of a thing just to kind of figure out where do you want to go and see if you can go in and try to actually win some money. You might lose a little bit scouting, but you're looking for places that you can go back and you can make it back just like that. So,
and all that comes with time. That comes with, if you're somewhat serious about the game, you enjoy it enough to study and to learn from other people and to spend the time, and then you start to get the feeling for what you need to do and know about those things. Sometimes folks just come in and they're like, I got a little bit of time here. I'm just going to just blow it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get lucky,
Yeah.
and, that's not,
well, luck is what?
When
You
opportunity,
said it twice then.
when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah. So
And they're
that's
not
the key.
doing those things to be lucky,
No, but if you're going as a small group and you're scouting tables and you're working together to try to figure out who has an advantage at certain tables and how it's going to work, that's what you're trying to do.
Sure.
No guarantees that it's going to work, but that's what your ultimate goal is to find places where if you have an advantage, you can take advantage of the advantage.
When did this hit you? I know you've been a craps player for a long time, and it's been a slow progression, and then you reach the status you are now. When did you kind of go, this is what it takes?
That's a tough question.
Probably developed over a long period of time.
Yeah, because, I'm a degenerate. When I was in Tahoe,
Yeah.
this is not answering your question. I'll get to answering your question. When I was in Tahoe that very first time, February of 1993.
Wow.
I played for 18 hours without stopping.
You degenerate.
I told you I was a degenerate.
I've not dug on that long.
Never played before until I went on that trip. And man, I mean, if you have a guy die next to you at a table, there's something about the table. So, 18 hours. We had rented a condo. I was there for a week, maybe 7 days. And so, which is a week. All right. So,
In Lake Tahoe, it is, yes.
yeah, but we had rented it was a group of people. We were there to ski.
Yeah.
Gambling was supposed to be an ancillary thing, and it turned into my primary thing.
Skiing is very nice in Lake Tahoe, definitely.
Oh yeah,
it's beautiful.
And I skied a little bit. I'm not sure I've been skiing since. I can almost guarantee you I hadn't been skiing since 1993.
Wow.
But
well, you were 15 then.
I was 15.
You had the fake ID for the tables.
When I got home from that first trip, I had a wad of $100 bills, just big old round roll up, that I had stuffed into different compartments of my duffel bag that was my carry-on. And I got home and I counted out every expense I had. I don't even know why I did this, but I thought it was a smart thing to do. I counted out, here's my plane tickets, here's my condo, here's my part of the condo, here's the food I spent, my rental car, my tire change, my and I just lift tickets, all those things, all the clothes I bought to go skiing that hardly got worn.
Wow.
I took everything out, and I still had a wad of $100 bills. And I took those $100 bills and I stuck them up in the top drawer of, in the bedroom furniture. And anytime I'd go gambling, I'd just reach in there and grab that and go with that. And it would either grow or shrink, grow or shrink, grow or shrink. I mean, I had that same wad of $100 bills up until I quit going for a little while when my kids went in college. And I think I ended up using some of that as just expense money for college on the kids and all that kind of stuff.
That'll do it.
So then you got to start over someday, right? But, that money that I won in Tahoe, I probably played.
It bankrolled you.
It bankrolled me for 10 to 15 years, dude. Somewhere in that area.
That's a great story.
I mean, I was in opening night at Philadelphia, Mississippi, Choctaw Casino. I went, how stupid to go opening night. I drove 3 hours to get there, a little over maybe, and
they must have some great bonuses they were giving out.
I don't even. I just
a free appetizer.
I remember that the dealers didn't know anything about how to deal craps. I remember that, but it was a long drive, and it was, I was there for hours and hours and hours. I drove over there, and then I drove back later on. I didn't even stay, but yeah, I had that same bankroll. I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years.
That's great.
You come home, stick it in the drawer.
You had a great and fairly unique introduction to
very unique,
easing into craps and feeling good about it and not thinking of losing and having having something to kind of keep you going without feeling like, well, I'm going there to blow some money. You know, you had that annuity sitting up there, you know, that they kept growing with the investment.
Well, I felt like I was treating it as a business even back then. I was a young business person, and this was my investment into this business. And I felt like I had to have money invested on a table in order to reap the rewards of the business from the table. If you go in low bankroll, you're going to get knocked out. You're going to get knocked out if you got a high bankroll, but you've got a high bankroll, you can recuperate. You can adjust. And I didn't even know how to bet the dark side back then. Didn't even know what that was. But I did learn, and even I feel like, even on that very first trip in Tahoe, I was like, there is a way to toss these dice the same way and increase your likelihood of getting similar results.
Cool.
Because I got backed off from throwing the dice the same way 2 times during that trip. And I didn't know nothing about grips. I knew nothing about anything about dice influence or anything like that. But mechanically in my mind, I knew there had to be something that was repetitive and repeatable about the toss. And I was right. I just didn't know I didn't know what I was on to until later.
Right.
But I knew I was on to something. So I know that didn't answer your question because I'm a degenerate.
Well, you did.
But,
I mean, that was where you talked about your evolution or your evolving, having the chance to have that bankroll and doing something right and having the right mindset that got you over or got you encouraged into looking for more and honing what you were doing and observing and learning. You know, you didn't have to keep, throwing money after it. You know, you
back
along.
dollars were like, tables were like $2 minimum bets and stuff. And here I am. Literally, I've paid for the whole trip. Every expense I could come up with, I took out of that wad, and I had several $1,000s left over.
That's great. And that's 5,000, 7,000 today. I mean, in today's money.
Yeah. It's all relative, I guess, but small bets, small minimum bets. But, after a while, you just kind of start going a little higher, and it just keeps adding up. 18 hours, dude. Went home, went back to the condo, slept 6 hours, went and played another 8.
Well, you were in a zone, and you were with the table was ripe for the picking. Also you had a lot of good things were going on there. You're in a good zone.
And it was at what I think is now the Harrah's there. Yeah. Harvey's is across the road. Harrah's is against the lake. Is that right?
Other way around.
Other way around. Okay. So it was at Harvey's at that time. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been Tahoe.
Sure.
Whichever one was closest to the lake, that's where I was living. I was just living at the time. Sure. Back then.
Yeah, that was back when they just had the one tower, the little tiny rooms. The rooms are very small in the older time.
Well, we were in a condo. We had a condo over on the California line side.
Yeah.
And there was a group of 6 of us. So we had rented a condo for, 7 days, split 6 ways. So
now there's a gazillion Airbnbs there. I mean, it's every.
I bet. It's got to be huge. A huge business there now.
There are people who I met folks. My wife and I, back in winter of 2001, when we first moved there, I got first time I ever got a yearly pass to go to a ski place. And I'd only been skiing 9 years earlier. I only had learned to ski 9 years earlier at a place in Virginia that was all pretty much, blowing a snow cone on the hill, and you'd ski on the chipped ice and Mass Nutting in the Shenandoah Valley. I took some lessons, learned, kind of got adequate. And then 9 years later, we were there. I said, honey, not getting any younger. If we're going to maybe take advantage of skiing, my wife grew up skiing. I mean, she lived in California. I said, why don't we get some the senior passes are inexpensive, and this looks like a beautiful place. And we moved there, and I even realized, so we got a pass. So we went once, sometimes twice a week. And I got better, and become a better skier. And then we made friends. You start meeting folks your age or whatever, and we made some friends that getting hot chocolate on the slope one day, and they go, "Oh, we come every day. We live down here, and we do our heavy skiing in the morning." I said, "Why don't we meet you here? Meet you here at 1:00, and we'll take you around." And we got to learn, and it was like having your own teachers. They were just very gracious, very nice. And what they did was they owned a place there in South Lake Tahoe. Now in the wintertime, they lived there in the winter, and they skied every day. And then they would go to Montana and fly fish all spring and summer and fall. And then they lived at a little cabin bungalow place, and he was a maintenance guy, and she, did housekeeping, and that paid their way to live there. And then they would go fly fishing on their days off. And then they would come back, and the Airbnb would make money all summer long. They'd Airbnb their place out all summer long for all the summer activities. And that's how they lived. And he grew up, doing both things. They loved it. And so they just moved one place to the next, summer and winter. And, it was a very unique lifestyle for them, but they modestly lived a fabulous life doing that and enjoyed what they did. So it was neat to, meet people that did that, and then I meet folks who worked at the resort, and they had family, and they lived in a motor home. They had a motor home. They live all winter, and they get to ski for free, and they get to go, and they work the slopes. They had their kids there, and they were in school, and the wife worked in the rental place. The guy was a ski instructor, and they had their kids. And then you get off at 4:00. I mean, the place closes down at 4, and they're down there with the kids at night and hanging out. And it's interesting to see the lifestyle people live around those kind of things.
Yeah. All right. So believe it or not, we're coming up on 2 hours, dude.
It seems like 2 minutes. What are you talking about? I haven't had to go to the bath. I have not had to go to the bathroom in my advanced years. That's a miracle.
So, all right. What have I not covered that you want to talk about in your craps journey?
I think we've covered pretty much all of it. There's always the funny stories. I talked about the one heckler guy quickly. One of the craziest things, I always talk about, what was the craziest things that ever happened when you're at the craps table, right? And it's like, there's some things like movie projects. There's a couple of movie projects where everything happens on one project, and then other ones just go smoothly as possible, no crazy things going on. I had one of those early in my career, which, I even talked on the DVD. Well, in craps, it was at the link. There was one night, and there's a couple.
You really like the link. I'm picking this out as that you and I are going to go play at the link.
It has worked out for me. I don't know why that is. Not that I gravitate toward the link, but I've had a number of, I guess the most money I ever made was at one time, and then second most was with 10 Ton the night I was with him, and then all the other good ones have been either at the link or at the Fremont or something. But anyway, I was there one night. I was with a couple. I won't mention the names. They may not want me to mention it, or they may be going, please mention my name. But it's a couple that you know them, and They were in a NASCAR, and they were there.
Oh yeah.
They go there in the NASCAR weeks. Although I think they're not as much in the NASCAR now. In fact, I just missed. They were Ira and Travis were with them this last week in Vegas, and I haven't seen them. I think the last time I saw them, we're at the link, and we're just the only ones there together. We've been traveling on a number of tables. We worked our way up, and we've settled at the link, the one table down there on the lower floor. And it's getting late, and we're playing, and they're at stick left, maybe 2 and 3, maybe in the hook, and I'm at stick right 1. And the table's kind of filling up, and there's all kinds of people. I mean, different, backgrounds and ethnicities and everything. And we're working around the table, and the first interesting thing, starts at, to my left, the hook way over the far left, near the dealer to the left. And there's a gentleman comes up, and he's kind of doing kind of a ghetto vibe, act, and he's pretty brutal. All the dealers are Asian guys, and the pit boss is a black gentleman, very elegant. He kind of reminds you of the guy that runs the hotel in the John Wick movies. I mean, he really got together. Very sharp. And the dealer there working, and this one guy comes up, and he's giving attitude, and he's just yelling it out, and then there's another black gentleman to my right who's this big guy, very gentle, very, and there's a couple other Asian people. There's all mix of people there. And the guy that right me is very quiet, and he's watching. And this other guy's just living life, bigger than life. I mean, just going at it. And he's down there constantly wanting to rub the dice on the table, and throw it. And the dealer keeps telling him, you can't do that. And he's like, he's dropping some language and the F-bombs, do whatever I want, whatever, it's almost like he's just trying to get attention. Finally, he's yelling, screaming. They're all, finally the box man, the pit guy walks up, the tall, elegant man. And he goes, sir, he says, the dealers are telling you that you can't do this. And the guy is dropping, the N-word, like, come on, brother.
Ooh.
He says, we're together. He says, well, you gonna not be with your brother, whatever, And then the guy next to me is going, oh don't go there. Oh my God. He's like, and finally the guy says, I'm calling security. The guy's like, yeah, and he walks off, and he keeps coming back. I mean, every other time, as soon as the security shows up, he's not here. And that place, there's a lot of, you can look around, and he's hiding somewhere. Then he comes running back up. He's like, I'm going to play again. He's like, call security again. Oh, I'm out of here, So I was coming and going. And they were coming around the table, and on the far right of me, there's a fella that is just tall enough that he can just barely look over the rail. The guy reaches his hand down, and he is from somewhere from Asia, and English is probably his second language, and he's yelling and just like, throwing the dice down and just going everywhere, and he's very angry. He's like just cussing and going on. He's angry. He's like, and the third side, sir, you can't, and he's like, like, yeah, and he's up there, throwing the dice down, and we're okay, and then this guy comes around, and next to me, he throws for a while, and it's all okay. So, I mean, it's just like anger and weirdness, and the guy keeps coming and going. And then comes my turn. I get the dice. I'm focused. Here I'm throwing, looking to my left. I'm throwing in the zone. I'm doing well, building my bets up, doing well. I make my point. And I start hearing someone behind me. It's a lady, and I hear her a little squeak, like she's pushing a cart or something. And she's going, come on, Binky, let's see what's going on. She goes, oh, Binky, look at these people. They're playing their game. And I'm hearing, I'm throwing, I'm tuning everything out, but I'm kind of aware of this. And then I kind of hear like right next to me, and I think the other gentleman's here, and I hear kind of talking, kind of not at the table. She's going, what do you think, Binky? Oh, isn't it nice? And I'm looking this way and looking at the die, looking this way. Finally, I make my point. And so they're and I'm going to shoot again. I'm kind of relaxing. And then I look to my right, and where the other fella had been standing, there's now, like in a baby carriage kind of thing, there's like the most unusually cute looking dog, like a little teddy bear dog, and his paws are in the rail, just sitting there going, looking up at me. And I see there's a lady there that just I realize is not quite right. And she's going, hi. She goes, Binky wanted to see the game. Isn't that nice, Binky? They're playing this nice game. And I'm going like, what's going on? I'm going like, holy moly. The dog's just going, looking around. And I'm looking at the dealer, and the dealer's kind of going like, they're like not saying anything. So I continue to throw. I'm throwing. And then all of a sudden, I find out later that she's with a guy that's a high roller, it's his wife, and Binky. And all she does is walk around. And then later, I just see them walking. I just see Binky. She's walking. She's always just circling the table with the dog. He's squeaking, and Binky's there looking. And I'm throwing. And all of a sudden, at the very end, I think finally my throws over. And now it's going to be the lady of the friends that she's up next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she starts throwing, and she's doing well. She's throwing down at my end. Then all of a sudden,
she has a very nice shot.
She does. She does great. They have a very precise setup, and getting their fingers even.
They're very
They're doing great.
Very golden touchy.
And golden touch. And I think that is their that's their entry level education, which was great. And they love playing. They have a lot of good friends that come and join them, and they're always nice to be around. And then these two guys walk up, and they're two Caucasian fellows, very thin and very tall, in athletic, like sweats and top, very very expensive. And I'm looking at them thinking, I wonder if these guys are like professional basketball players. I mean, they kind of have that vibe about them. But they are, you could tell they've got some money. They walk and man, they're talking big. And okay, the money's here. And right in the middle of the ladies' throw, they throw down each like $5,000. Throw $5,000 on the table, just hundreds, just go everywhere. And she's like throwing, going like, what's going on? Okay, we got to stop. They're counting the money out. They're counting, and they're going like, don't worry. We're here. The money's here. We're all going to win. It's going to be great. We're all great, And finally, she's throwing, and they keep being rather loud and obnoxious and throwing things on the table. And the lady is starting to get a little like, okay, this is rude, And
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And her husband, and he's not, he's kind of like, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say, finally says, hey guys, the lady's trying to shoot. You need to be more respectful. And they're just like, yeah, little man. I mean, because they're huge, they're giant. They're going like, yeah, money, we're here. It's going to be all right. They're all going to win money. Who cares? We're throwing our money out. And he's like, well, you know what? And then they start cussing a little bit. And he's like, and then she's going like almost like a school teacher. She's going like, do not cuss at this table. You know better. You look like you know better. They're like, oop, oop. And she's throwing, and they let out another F or S bomb or something. She goes, that's it. She puts a dice on the table. I'm not shooting anymore. I'm coloring up. I'm out of here. You guys are rude. This table, something's wrong. I can't play like this. Just take my chips down. Give me my money back. It's in the middle of the roll. Well, since they've just colored in, now the dice are going to go to the guy at the far end. And this guy is a new guy, and everyone's pissed because she's having a good roll.
Oh, yeah.
I said, well, I'm going to join. It's time to get out of here, too. So I go, give me my money, and I'm colored up, too. I'm out of here. And we all walk to the cage, which is within eyesight. It's way on down from there where that table is.
Yeah, I know where it's
We're checking out. Can you believe those guys? What's going on? Oh, my gosh, And then I'm looking back. I get my money, and I'm looking back, and I see the dealer, it was across from me, and I see way off, and you see him going like, I'm going like, what's he waving at her for? And I'm going like, hey, it's almost like he's waving at me. And I'm going like, he goes, like that. I'm going, what the heck? So I walk all the way back to the table. And I got my money. And he goes, you won. I go, what do you mean you won? You won the all tall. And I realized I had a all tall and small out there. But I thought I just left.
Yeah.
Well, the new guy throwing had already made the tall. He finished the talls, and I got my money. So I'm thinking, well, I'm sitting. See what else happens. I still got my small and my all out there. So I watch, and this guy down here, the other guys, they're still talking loud and throwing money and chips on the table and just being as rude as can be. And this guy is taking the dice, and he's like throwing them at the diamonds. I mean, just like he's throwing at these guys, like just like, like you SOBs, and they're oblivious.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're, like on speed or something. I don't know what's going on. They're just like, yeah, what money's going on? And man, the dice are like, bam, hitting the thing and flying back. And he gets the dice again. He's like, yeah, throwing them, and it's like, he wants to hit the guys. He doesn't. And I'm going, and finally, the ugly number shows up. And so, okay, I lost my thing. I get on out of there. I think the next day I'm coming through and I see the guy there, and I see the pit boss, the tall gentleman. And I said, hey, I was here last night. Oh yeah. I said, those two really tall guys down here threw all that money on the table. I said, so were they all the money? They bring the money to the table? And he goes, they lost it all.
Of course they did.
Because I never saw them shoot. And he says, and they lost it quick, and they got out of here to spread cheer and happiness somewhere. So I said, wow.
Oh, man.
So that was all.
That happened.
That was all at one table. But Binky the dog was like the thing I'd never, it was like.
I used to run into some pro athletes up in Tunica.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Especially like Memphis Grizzlies. But Tunica was such a high roller atmosphere back in the day. It's nice and dead now, but
I've only been there one time.
You'd have
driving through.
You'd have all these different NFL players and whoever. I mean, they would all pop in there.
Amazing.
You'd be on a table with them. It was a lot of fun back then, but it's kind of it's on its. I'm not going to say it's on its last leg. There's a couple, 3 casinos that are surviving, and the rest are just hanging on. But we got a Caesars property is still hanging in there. That's my favorite place to play there. I just don't go much anymore. I go down to Biloxi, but anyway, anything else? We just crossed the 2 hours and 9 minute mark.
I've had a great time. I guess we ought to walk away while the table's good, right?
Yeah, we walk away while
we're up. If
Yeah.
anyone sat through this much of yammering on, God bless them. But it's the quality of the production is what's bringing them in.
Yeah, well, my production skills are minimal. Gets me by though.
It's the content.
All
the
right,
content's what counts. And the great thing that you and 10 Ton do and what we did tonight, it's not all about craps and not all about just talking about that alone. It's personality, and you find in
conversation.
You find in even long format podcasts and all, the personality is what people love, and when you can keep that going, and people care and they want to show up and learn about what you've been doing, what's going on.
Well, I thank you for coming on Tales of the Table and sharing your dice story, sharing your Hollywood story, and just
it's my pleasure.
Entertaining people for a couple of hours tonight. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to do it.
It's my pleasure, Ed, and look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.